Hey YouTube, it is League Tournaments today, and on top of the limited Hisui Cup, which we have this morning, which is a great league, there is Ultra League. So we're going to go over what we did last time, and how I did it was I looked at top teams, but I told you like why the team works, how to adjust it, because a lot of comments I always get on videos is, I don't have this Pokemon, what do I use? So if you understand sort of the logic behind the team and how the team is built and potential replacements, then I think that would help you moving forward. So Ultra League rankings, basically buffed Pokemon over the past couple seasons, as you're going to see at the top here. So we have Bellibolt with the Parabolic Charge buff, Lapras, which Psywave a couple seasons ago, Corviknight nothing yet, but man, if Corviknight is already the number 4 Pokemon in the Ultra League, and it's getting a community day in August, and it's going to get only better from there, it will be a top Pokemon. So Corviknight community day is definitely one that we're going to have to watch out for. But Fortress, Bug Bite, Dusknoir with the Astonish buff in previous, Moltres with the Fly access now. So as you can see, Grumpig still with Psywave from previous seasons. Shadowclaw for Alligator has just been around for a few seasons now. But as you can see, Gliscod, Fury Cutter, a ton of Pokemon, Tentacruel with Acid, a ton of Pokemon that have been buffed in previous seasons or this season and are at the top of the rankings. As you can see with all the XLs, not every single one, Gliscod's not XL, but you know, there's a lot of XLs in this meta, but you can get by without some, like Lapras and Gliscod. But otherwise, it's a pretty XL heavy meta here. And the meta has been pretty... Yes, there's all these buffed in new Pokemon, like there's Credillia with Acid, and there's Malamar with the Foul Play that got nerf / buff, depending how you're looking at buff for Malamar. Regidrago, which is now the Dragon Energy, right? So there's a lot of Pokemon that are newer to this list, but there are some staples. We talked about Giratina here, that's been around since sort of season 1. Weezing has been a pretty good safe swap for a while now. You know, Steelix has been a meta for a while now. Cobalion here at 31. So there are definitely a lot of options in the Ultra League. So it feels like Great League and Ultra League both have a lot of options right now to play with. So let's look over some teams. There's only 4 of them, and only 2 of them are mine. So we will look at some teams. Not a lot of people play Ultra League, unfortunately. It is very resource heavy, so people tend to avoid it, and there's a Great League option on right now. But if you want to play Ultra League, here are a couple team ideas and how to adjust them. Okay. So, Bellibolt for Alligator, Talonflame. This was a very easy team to understand and how it was built. Started with Bellibolt. Wanted to check out that Parabolic Charge buff in the Ultra League. Spoiler alert, it is a beast. I think it's too much of a beast. I think Parabolic Charge is going to be nerfed. Other people do not think it's going to be nerfed, but I personally think it will be nerfed. So, what are going to be your problems? You're going to have basically 2 problems, I think, for the most part. The first one is ground, and that is what I covered basically the backline with. You are going to be very, very weak to ground. Parabolic Charge, Zap Cannon, double resisted by ground, so you need to cover your ground weakness. So I covered it 2 ways. I covered it with Feraligatr as a water Pokemon that also acts as a safe swap, and then I covered it with Talonflame as just something that's going to resist ground if you get like a Mud Slap user. So that is how the team came to be. Now, you are also potentially going to have problems with Dark, and you have not many Dark Pokemon in the meta. In fact, there is a lot more Ghost. You're probably way more favorable with Sucker Punch than you are without it, because there are a decent amount of Psychic, decent amount of Ghost, not a ton of Dark. So I think Sucker Punch is going to help you more than not. There is no direct answer to Dark on this team, but if Sucker Punch is resisted, you know, Parabolic Charge comes fast enough. This is why I think Parabolic Charge is going to be nerfed, because it comes fast enough and it does good enough damage while boosting your defense. So I think you can kind of get away with it. So I didn't really cover that weakness. I just felt that the ground weakness was something more I need to cover. So it's a very balanced team with Feraligatr as a safe swap, Talonflame in the back. You can use sort of another safe swap and another Pokemon in the back as a balanced team. Just make sure that you cover your ground weakness if you're building around Bellibolt. But let's say you don't have a Bellibolt and you want to build around, let's say, something like Talonflame. So with Talonflame, you can still potentially use Feraligatr as a safe swap because you... Well, you are W2, let me preface this. You are W2 Electric in the back for Alligator Talonflame. So if you are worried about that, maybe don't use Alligator as a safe swap. If you are building around Talonflame, you need to watch out for your rock weakness, which you're double weak to, which is why I would build around that with Feraligatr. But if you're worried about the double electric weakness, a potential other something else that balances out would be like a Primeape or a fighter. Any sort of fighter that is, going to be weak to flying or resists fighting. So we're looking at poison stuff. Talonflame should deal with most of those. Talonflame is just generally safe outside of your sort of rock and electric weakness. Even some waters are 50-50 depending on how hard hitting the water move is. So that's how you can potentially adjust depending on what Pokemon you're building around. Virizion double fire. So I hit Legend last season in the Great League with a Azumarill, Typhlosion, Talonflame. Typhlosion was your safe swap because you had Thunder Punch. So if you drew out a water, if you drew out an Azumarill, if you drew out a whatever, if you drew out a ground, you have Blast Burn. If you drew out a water, you had Thunder Punch. If you drew out a Mudboy, tough. Tough. So the question is, why did I use grass here and not a water like I used in the Great League? And the reason I use water in the Great League is because there are a lot more ground Pokemon than there are in the Ultra League. So if you look, let me just pull up the rankings here. If you're looking at the Great League and you throw in ground, you need to watch out for a ton of ground Pokemon when using this team, right? You got your Clodsire, Diggersby, Gligar, Gastrodon, Stunfisk, Steelix, Marowak, Oluric, Quagsire. How many has that within the top 34? 10 Pokemon in top 34 that were ground. There are a lot of water, don't get me wrong. But again, some of these water with Lapras and Jellicent and Samurott and Glycopod, you will have the Thunder Punch to deal with them. So it's more I'm worried about ground, which is why if I'm worried about ground in the Great League, I need to run it with you could run it with a grass. Don't get me wrong, grass also hits super effective against ground. But as you saw on the ground list here, there are a lot of secondary typings that will cause you problems. Clodsire is half poison, so that will neutralize grass. Gligar is half flying, that neutralizes grass. Steelix is half steel, so that neutralizes grass. So all of a sudden, all your grass strength goes out the window there, which is why I paired it with a water Pokemon. In the Ultra League, there are not as many ground, especially those slap users that are really going to cause you problems. There's still Gastrodon, but I think a lot of these ground Pokemon are a lot more rare because you need Gastrodon, Stunfisk. Yes, there are on this list that they are also on the list for a Great League, but the likelihood that people have and built up a level 50 hundo to only get to 24-45 Stunfisk is a lot lower than the likelihood that they did it in the Great League. So with that, I'm more worried about these water Pokemon. I'm more worried about Lapras, which doesn't need XLs. I'm more worried about Feraligatr that doesn't need XLs. I'm more worried about Glycopod that doesn't need XLs. I'm more worried about Jellicent and Tentacruel that have been around for a long time. So yes, Tentacruel is half poison, which could cause you a bit of problems. But otherwise, I'm more covering the water weakness than I am the ground weakness. So grass, double fire. Why did I use these instead of others? You can use others. You're going to be double weak. There's so many double weaknesses here. Ground, water, rock, which is what you essentially have when you pull out, when you run a double same typing in the back. I think Typhlosion is still very strong with the Thunder Punch. And is it not a Shadow? But Blast Burn is just such a nuke that it can do as well. But there's other options. Skeldurge has Shadow Ball and Torch Song, so you can just kind of boost through with Torch Song, or Shadow Ball gives you coverage. You can also use Talonflame. Let's see if there's any other fires that I would use in the meta. Probably not. Yes, High Ninetales, but no. I think really Typhlosion, Talonflame, and Skeldurge are the three fires that you want to use. I use Virizion because it is one of the top grass metas. If you're using Credilli, my only concern is that if you're using with acid and you run into a ground, you're just going to have resisted acid too. So that is why I use Virizion, because you get to the Leaf Blades and 9, and the double kicks generally are neutral on most grounds there. So you can adjust with other grass, just make sure maybe not Credilli, or if you can use Credilli, honestly, maybe just use Bullet Seed to cover the ground weakness that you're pulling out in the back here. And this is what Home Slice did on this team. Poison Sting, Bullet Seed, and Dragon Tail. And sorry, not Dragon Tail. God's Lord. So there's a couple things that I noticed with this team. One is you are double weak to fighting in the back. So this is one of those ones where it's like you're going to share double weakness in the back, but it's not like built like an ABB style team per se. So you are double weak to fighting in the back, and yes, your Tentacruel as a poison will resist the fighting. So you could theoretically safe swap, I would say Credilli, and go there. I think the other reason that Credilli is running Bullet Seed, because I think Bullet Seed is probably safer as a safe swap because you want to just get to the moves faster and start really chipping with the moves, like the charge moves and lowering the attack and stuff. Tentacruel is weak to ground, and it has Poison Sting. So if you're weak to ground and have Poison Sting on Tentacruel, you're going to potentially run into trouble if you have an Acid user in Credilli. So that's why the Bullet Seed works. And then Guzzlord, there's not sort of like you have to use Guzzlord to cover this weakness, right? Because you got like a fighting weakness on Credilli, which you're weak to. You got a ground weakness on Tentacruel, which you are only neutral to. You are weak to electric on Tentacruel, so if you see like a Bellibolt, that you got a pretty good answer in Guzzlord for Bellibolt. So we potentially use it as just like a safe, balanced team with Guzzlord in the back. In terms of like other safe swaps here, you could, if you want to, go and check out safe swaps. I think there's a lot of good switches in the Ultra League for safe swaps. Like I used for Alligator before, but yeah, Lapras, the Hydro Cannon users, Samurott for Alligator, Primeape because of its spamminess and range with just Rage Fist too potentially. Grumpig is spammy enough in this league, and there's not as many. Yes, Bug got buffed through the roof, but it's not as prevalent in the Ultra League, so Grumpig potentially play. And then there's your normal Weezing and Glycopod and Drapions. So there are a lot of good safe swaps to be used in this meta. So if you want to just run a more balanced team, you can use sort of like Tentacruel with one of those, plus a different one in the back. But there's no like, with this one, it's a little more, I don't want to say like off the standard team building perspective, but it's just like you've got enough. I think with this team, this is how I would analyze this team. There are a lot of usable Pokemon in the Great League and in the Ultra League. I think all three of these Pokemon are very, very usable in the Great League. You got that Poison Sting Tentacruel that can spam pretty fast with Scald, and now you have that, and you can get to Blizzard. Blizzard was more of like a niche play before, but now you can actually get to the Blizzards and have that coverage. Credilli has been a solid safe swap since it got Rock Tomb that guaranteed to lower the opponent's attack, because the Bolt Seed charges very quick. Grass Knot actually is a very nice move, and then Rock Tomb gives you your coverage against flyers and stuff like that you may have problems against. So between the coverage and between being able to lower your opponent's attack, I think that is a pretty good safe swap. Guzzlord has always been a strong option in the Ultra League because it is a dark, which does well against like the Girautinas and the Cresselias and all the Pokemon that were in the meta that were weak to dark, and is half dragon. And dragon has a ton of resistances, being grass and water and fire. So you just resist a lot as a dragon. So I think that you have enough play coverage here. And I also just noticed you are double weak to ice. Credilli and Guzzlord are double weak to ice, are both weak to ice. So again, it's one of those like, could you just adjust, instead of being double weak to ice and being double weak to fighting, just adjust Guzzlord for something? Yes. What would I adjust it with? Again, I would cover, you can argue that you have your cover for ground and you can just find like a third balanced Pokemon, like a third safe swap, or you can cover the, you know what, you also have your electric cover. That's not actually, Credilli is a very nice cover for, especially with Bolt Seed, is a nice cover for Tentacruel because you cover your ground weakness and you cover your electric weakness. So if you want to use those two and then come up with a new third as a safe swap and look at that safe swap list and just go like what makes sense to neutralize to not pick up a third weakness, that could potentially work there too. And Dragalge, Primeape, and Moltres. And this is one where, again, you pick up a double ice weakness here. Dragalge is half dragon, and you have a flyer here. So you have an ice answer in Primeape. Primeape is a good safe swap. You are double weak to fairy in the back. You're only neutral to fairy on the front, but you have acid on the front, so you're probably okay there. And again, this is one of those where it's just like probably a strong team just with the Pokemon being used. Notice the payback on Moltres. I think that just gives you more coverage against the meta, right? There are potentially more steals in this meta. Like Steelix off the top of my head is a lot more usable in this league than it is the Great League. You got Corviknight there, which is a top Pokemon. And when you get a little lower here, it's a little less Pokemon that you're going to be used. But there's Steelix and Corviknight are definitely two that are used a lot. Plus, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of Ghost, right? Dusknoir, Renorigus, Giratina, Golurk. That would neutralize it because it's half fighter, but Spiritomb, Jellicent. So it's not surprising that, Dark is another option for payback there. Ice Punch here will give you some coverage for, a lot more dragons in this meta. There is okay amount of flyers, some grass. So I think Ice Punch just gives you coverage here. And if you're using Primeape as a safe swap, a lot of people like using Ice Punch because it just gives you that coverage. Especially like in Great League, it's often used where you would use that as a safe swap and then maybe draw like a Jump Pluff and then do double super effective with the Ice Punches. There's not really many Jump Pluffs in the Ultra League, but there are other Pokemon that could potentially be hit super effective with the Ice Punch, like all these dragons. And then Dragalge plays so much better with Acid. Again, when it had Dragon Tail, the Dragon Tail did damage, but you were basically throwing non-stab Aqua Tails, and that combo just was not great. You were rarely getting to the Outrage, and now you're getting to the Outrage. So it is double weak to Ice here, but it also is sort of a balanced team. Dragalge, again, one of the biggest weaknesses, like the previous team, is going to have problems with ground. You are half poison, so you're weak to ground, and you have an acid fast move. So in general, you do not want to see ground type Pokemon. Hence, an Ice Punch on Primeape and a flyer in the back. You are also half dragon, so your electric weakness in the back here is resisted by the dragon. So could actually have a balanced team with Primeape as a safe swap. Just know you are double weak to Fairy in the back and double weak to Ice one in front there. But again, I don't mind double ice weakness, double electric weakness. These ones are still, typings are still pretty niche. So it's not something you super need to worry about. So I'm not worried about running ABA weak to like ice. You just kind of like what ice Pokemon, how many ice Pokemon are in the meta that actually have ice moves first, right? Lapras is the main ice one, and it has Ice Beam, but really it has a Psywave and Sparkling Aria as the main moves. Ice Beam takes a while to get to. And then you're looking down at number 52 of Walrein, and like I like using Walrein, but not a lot of Walreins are used. And then Kyurem's, not a lot of Kyurems are used. Auroras, maybe you get a few, but not many. So being double weak to ice is not the worst case scenario in this meta. Anyways, those are some teams. That's how you sort of adjust. And yeah, so good luck if you're going to play. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.